Many of the dead lie in white sheets. The names, if they're known, are written on the fabric enshrouding the bodies. At least 525 people killed in a single day in Egypt, according to the country's health ministry, a staggering number. The bloodiest day since the 2011 revolution. The scene from Cairo today, where a curfew just went into effect an hour ago. The capital, once again, at a brink after a day filled with images like this one. Forces of Egypt's interim government stormed two camps filled with supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi, and the result, a slaughter. Members of Morsi's party, the Muslim Brotherhood, are retaliating. They stormed a government building in Giza and set it on fire. Morsi supporters also reportedly torched a number of Coptic Christian churches. The mass demonstrations show no sign of stopping. A sea of pro-Morsi protesters filled the streets of Alexandria, Egypt today. The State Department has issued a warning for all Americans living in Egypt or planning to even just travel there. And the UN Security Council is holding a closed-door meeting on Egypt at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. President Obama has been watching this all unfold during his vacation on Martha's Vineyard. Here's a picture of him on the phone with his top national security advisors earlier today. The president today gave his first public remarks on the Egyptian crackdown, condemning the violence on both sides.
While we want to sustain our relationship with Egypt, our traditional cooperation cannot continue as usual when civilians are being killed in the streets and rights are being rolled back. As a result, this morning we notified the Egyptian government that we are canceling our biannual joint military exercise, which was scheduled for next month.
The president today also referred to the change in power in Egypt as the military's intervention. The military's intervention. There's another word that could be used to describe the act of a military overthrowing a democratically elected leader and installing a new government in its place. A coup. But you will not hear anyone in the Obama administration use that word if they did call it a coup. The law dictates that the U.S. would have to stop sending aid, specifically $1.5 billion in annual aid to Egypt. So the State Department has decided that it simply will not decide.
The law does not require us to make a formal determination. That is a review that we have undergone as to whether a coup took place, and it is not in our national interest to make such a determination.
Today, the State Department said it is reviewing aid to Egypt in, quote, all forms. But keep this in mind. Of the $1.5 billion the U.S. gives Egypt every year, about $1.3 billion of it goes to the Egyptian military. And a lot of that is actually spent right here in the U.S. on weapons, fighter jets, et cetera, which are then sent to Egypt. Our own senior international correspondent, Arwa Damon, is standing by live in Cairo. She's been reporting from the middle of all of this. Arwa, what's been happening today?
Well, if you compare it to the levels of violence that we saw taking place yesterday, it most certainly has been, relatively speaking, fairly quiet. Earlier in the day, we actually went down to one of the churches that had been looted and burnt by an angry mob of Islamists, as eyewitnesses were describing them as being the actions of the government when it came to deciding to send its security forces and its policemen in to use violence to clear out those two sit-ins as having a very significant ripple effect here. You have these increased attacks on the Christian community. You also have these attacks against police forces. Morsi's supporters refusing to go back home. A lot of people very concerned about where this is all going to go. And this is why even here on the ground, there were those who were advising the government against taking this kind of action. Using violence to go in and clear those demonstrators out was only going to create the kind of situation that we have right now. And any sort of political resolution moving forward is going to be very, very difficult and very challenging, Jake.
Arwa Damon, thank you so much. Please stay safe.